Hi guys, Rob here from Rabtastic Paints. Now, I never saw myself making this video. In fact, I never wanted to make this video. But unfortunately, the pressures of being a YouTube sensation are just too high. In the quest for success, even a man like myself must bend sometimes. And I regret to inform you all, I've started the 40k army. Now you might be asking why? Why Rab? Why? And the truth is that there are quite a number of reasons actually. Middle Earth was kind of dead. My ex-girlfriend broke up with me. My dog got his balls chopped off. Very possible, probable neurodivergency. The need to spend money to feel dopamine. And finally, fear of missing out because Games Workshop put a lot of effort into 40k. So the purpose of this video is sort of a beginner's guide to beginning 40k. I'm going to explain how I got into it, the mistakes that I feel like I made, and hopefully guide you guys on starting your very first army without breaking the bank. Now for the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume that you know how to build and paint models. If you don't, you might want to try that first. Building models can be difficult depending on what models you get. There's definitely layers to it. Space Marines are easy, you can do it in your sleep, but then there's also fine cast resin models which are an absolute nightmare and will have you wishing for super glue remover when all your fingers are stuck together. If you have never built or painted a model, maybe do that first before you buy a whole army. Try picking up one of the start painting sets, give that a shot, see if you like it. When I got into Warhammer, I'd already built armies for different games like Middle Earth, Star Wars Legion, and Kill Team of course as well. So I knew what I was getting myself in for. If you buy all these models and you've never built a model before, you might be in for a bad time. So you are a capable seasoned pro with a pair of clippers and a paintbrush, or you're just a very keen starter wanting to get into the game. What's next? Now 40k has a huge rich history, and at time of recording this video I believe there's 35 playable armies, each having bookcases worth of lore and a ton of models, except the Votan, they've only got about 12. But Codex's coming soon, TM. So my suggestion, as always, unless you're a competitive player, and if you're a competitive player, you're probably watching the wrong channel because I suck at this game and every game I've ever played. But my rule is always rule of cool. Find a faction that you think looks cool, something you enjoy. Maybe they've got a book that you really enjoy, maybe they have a model that looks really cool to you, maybe you just like their lore. For me, it was Votan. That was not my first love in 40k, I'll maybe touch on that later, but it was the one that appealed to me the most when I decided to get into the game. I love dwarfs in every setting, whether it's fantasy or space dwarfs. Space dwarfs being doubly cool, rock and stone brother, that's all there is to it. But of course you might have differing opinions to me. You might think that elves are cooler, in which case there are a number of elven factions, good and bad. Good and bad. Good and bad is a very grey term, Warhammer, whatever. There's also a lot of Space Marines, or you could make your own Space Marine chapter. No one really going to complain about that one. But yeah, go for something that you enjoy looking at, and maybe look at the rules and see, these rules seem simple enough to me to play. That's how I did it with Votan. The Votan are a very simple army. They move, they shoot. No fancy rules, no gotchas. So yeah, look at the rules, look at the model lists, look at the lore, find something that you're going to enjoy building and painting and playing a lot with, because Warhammer, as I'll probably mention a few more times, is a very expensive hobby. You don't want to waste a lot of money on an army that you just don't like. So you've chosen which faction you want to play in 40k, and it's time to make your first purchase. So what do you think it should be? Well, let me introduce to you Combat Patrol. Now, most factions have at least one combat patrol box. I say at least one. Some factions have two, a 9th edition and a 10th edition. You can probably find the 9th editions on eBay or maybe on the shelves of your local game store. And there is a generic Space Marines one which almost every chapter can use. Now, I think the combat patrol boxes are fantastic. They offer a variety of miniatures, including some very handy ones, at a financial discount. So this box is cheaper than the sum of its parts. That's what I was looking to say. Yeah. Another note on cheapness and not spending a lot of money: always shop locally. Go to a local game store or go to one of the ones like Element or Firestorm Games or anything else online, and you'll get like 15 to 20% discount. If you can find them second hand, even cheaper, good, go for it. There are also more unscrupulous ways of playing Warhammer, which I won't get into because that's a whole other video for a whole other day. There are also army sets, Christmas boxes, battle force boxes, and if you're really lucky, those don't contain the same models as your combat patrol, and they also don't contain unique models, so you can buy multiple of them. It sounds like you're spending a lot of money, but again, some of the parts is cheaper than everything that's in the box, so a good option in my opinion anyway. My final suggestion for the very first steps, if you're getting into the hobby with a friend, which I would suggest because then you have someone to play against, maybe both get a starter set or split one between the two of you and take an army each. The 10th edition starter set has Space Marines and Tyranids, both very popular factions. So you've chosen your first faction, you've bought a bunch of models, and you've painted up to a standard that you're happy with, which is all that really matters. Now you're ready to play a game. If you've got into the hobby with another friend, this would be the perfect opportunity to play a practice game. Now, Warhammer is usually played in points of 1000, 2000 or 4000. I'd maybe avoid 4000 for a while because that could be quite an expensive one. 2000 is sort of tournament standard, 1000 are the starter games. However, there is another way to play even easier. Combat Patrol to the rescue once again. Not only is Combat Patrol a great way to start an army, it's its own game. Each Combat Patrol is balanced in a game way to be able to play against another Combat Patrol. Some of the rules may differ slightly, but they're all available online for free. And again, I think it's a fantastic way to just get started and start rolling some dice against your friend and seeing if you actually enjoy the game of Warhammer and that faction's rules. Now, Warhammer 40k is usually played on a 6 foot by 4 foot table, which makes for massive immersive battles, but it isn't exactly accommodating for most people's living rooms. However, Combat Patrol is played on a much smaller scale. The board is only 4 foot by 2.5 foot. If you play Kill Team, it's just 2 Kill Team boards put together, which makes it a lot easier to play. In fact, you can fit it on your dining table if you're lucky enough to have a nice dining table. So you've had your very first game of 40k and you are fully hooked. What's next? Well, to be honest, that's kind of up to you, but I'll tell you what I would do if I got to go back and start again. I would play an Escalation League. Now, you can play those at your local gaming store. A lot of them have them and hold them quite regularly, or if you have friends, you can just do it with your friends. The idea is you start at a small points total, like 500 points, and then every 2-3 weeks or even a month, depending on how busy you guys are with your rest of your lives, you add a number of points, so like 250. So month 1 500, month 2 750, 1000, and you just go from there until you just have the required points that you want to play. I think that is the way I would have done it if I got to start again, rather than jumping right into it and building all these models. So I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope it informs your decisions as you build your first or even second, third, fourth, fifth Warhammer armies. Again, try and save money as much as you can. This is a very expensive hobby and you won't be doing yourselves any favour if you make it even more expensive. And as I said, there's always deals to be had on eBay or from your friendly local game store, or splitting costs with a friend. Like I said, some of the boxes have 2 armies. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. I hope it was at least a little bit entertaining as well. There will be probably more 40k content. As I said, I'm getting into quite a bit. Kill Team content will not be going anywhere. There's new Kill Teams coming out and I'm quite excited for that as well. But if you did enjoy the content today, please like, subscribe, all those usual YouTube things, and I'll see you in the next one with even more painted models.